NJ.com and the Star Ledger welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rutgers Rant, a very special Rutgers Rant. I know I might say that a lot, but this is actually a very special Rutgers Rant. We have our first Scarlet Knight guest on the show today. I am floored that this is happening. Couldn't be more excited to take us through what happened here. Set this up for our listeners, Brian. Explain how we ended up having Gia Girman on the show.
Sometimes you think you might not get something, but you might as well ask. You throw up a Hail Mary and suddenly you hear, sure, she'd love to do it. So we asked to talk to her and we were told that she would be willing to talk. And I said, well, how about we get her on the Rutgers Rant? And I was told, sure, she'll do it. So in a few minutes here, we'll have Gia Girman on to talk all things Rutgers women's soccer, to talk all things fighting, to talk all things we're going to ask her. So it should be our best interview with the Rutgers athlete yet.
Yeah, I can only assume, Pat, that the women's soccer program has never listened to the podcast. Is it perhaps that's the explanation?
That's got to be it.
That's got to be it.
There's
right?
no question. But what better representative could we have as an ambassador to the Rutgers Rant than a true Jersey girl, a fighting spirit, a girl who is going to interestingly segue into the divide of North and South Jersey at some point on this podcast, I believe.
Of course, absolutely.
And
not just that. Let's get to we're going to pull punches here. Whose punch sparked a resurgence of women's soccer? Cold cocked the player in the other team. What exactly happened again? The viral moment that changed women's soccer this season, Brian?
They were playing at UMass. The game was tied, I believe. There was a fight, not a literal fight, but both teams were going for the ball. There was a foul called against Rutgers. UMass was trying to collect the ball to play fast. Gia Girman was having none of it. Bit of a skirmish. Some punches were then exchanged, and Gia Girman was red carded and sent off from the game. And suspended 3 games subsequently. 3-game self-suspension. Usually these are 2 games, but Rutgers tacked on one extra one just for, just to kind of cover their own backs here. And suddenly the Scarlet Knights win 3 games without her, score 8 goals, concede none. She comes back, fits right back in, and scores the game winner in a 1-0 road win at Wisconsin to open Big Ten play. So she woke the ladies up with a nice smack in the face. They got up and played better, and now she's the one throwing out the punches against Wisconsin, scoring the goal. And I'm really running out of punch puns at this point. Yeah. So I think you guys have to
taken it as far as you possibly could go. I'm impressed. Right. True Jersey tradition. Arturo Gotti, Chuck Wepner, the Bayonne leader. On the
Cinderella
list.
Man, James J. Braddock.
Oh, you're going way back. You hit the way back machine. Yeah. So this is great. Man. I can't wait to see what she's going to say about this. We're going to talk to her about a bunch of other stuff. This is very exciting. Yeah. So take a really quick break and we'll be back. Gia Girman, women's soccer star on the Rutgers Rant. Here we go. All right. We are back with a live Rutgers athlete. Gia, do you recognize you are our first guest, our first athlete to be on this podcast? We cannot tell you how honored we are. Thank you for doing this. I hope you don't regret it already.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right. So we're having you on talk about women's soccer, talk about the team this year, talk about your career, your journey, everything about it. But first, we got to ask you about the big moment for you. What's it been like kind of going through this with the punch and the suspension and everything that's kind of followed through after that?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a moment that I had. And I think I took the 3-game suspension a lot to learn and grow with my team. And my team has been awesome. Great support all around. It's just been a really good environment.
I realized, things were probably chaotic when it happened, but at what point did you realize this video was going viral on Twitter and every social media platform. Just take us through when you realized this was kind of getting bigger than just the field at UMass.
Well, I think we were all on the bus on the ride home, and people were like showing me Twitter like posts, and I was just like, okay, it's fine, like it'll blow over. And then I got a notification from ESPN, like an actual notification, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is going everywhere. And every time I opened my phone, it was just a new post from some like TV broadcast or something. Like it was just everywhere.
So our colleague Brandon Gould, who covered high school girls soccer here for us at NJ.com, also told us you have a twin sister, Gabby. So we thought, obviously, there has to be some sibling fighting going on at some point.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever?
Not really. We never really fought when we were younger. My mom even said like she's never even seen me like do that to my sister when I was younger. Like we didn't ever fight really like that. I feel like that's more like a brother sister thing.
So there's not one. Is there one person before this that you've cold cocked in your life that no, this was your first, this was your first punch thrown?
Like, yeah, I've never even thought about doing that.
I'm sure you walk around campus, the athletic facilities, all this stuff. You see a bunch of athletes, classmates. Have people been, joking around with you? Have they been? What's been the reaction from people around you to kind of your viral face?
I think a lot of it like was a joke. Like I think because like people realized that I was like a little set back from it because like they know like that's not who I am. So I was a little like in my head about how people were viewing me. But like once people did start to turn it into a joke, and I was like, okay, like I'm okay, like I'm allowed to be myself. Like these people know that like that's not how I am. So I think the way that they were joking about it like actually helped me a lot. But it was an ongoing joke for a little bit. Yeah, they still talk about it.
Well, you don't know this, Gia, but in the Rutgers media contingency, it also sparked an interesting debate about North Jersey, Central Jersey, and South Jersey, the ongoing saga of geography in our great states. Brian, our colleague here, said that Nottingham High School is in South Jersey, and I just had to instantly correct him. And then it became a whole thing among all these people arguing about where Hamilton is on the map and if it's Central Jersey or is it South Jersey. So settle it for us. Does Central Jersey exist, and where is Hamilton?
I think that I'm from Central Jersey.
Wow.
100% in Central Jersey. Yeah, that's what everyone in my town says. We're from Central Jersey.
Wow. What is South Jersey? If that's Central Jersey, man, that seems way down there to me.
Yeah, that's all right. Jonathan
well,
Taylor, Salem High School. That's Tyrene Powell is a very South Vineland, Pacheco.
Yeah.
That's
good enough for me. That's good. All right, that's the official take then. From now on, I know the answer to that. So tell me, what you bring me through your career. I mean, you I didn't realize this until I looked at your bio. You're 5'2".
Yeah, I'm small.
Yeah. So was that? I mean, was that like as a soccer player? Was that to your advantage? Was that something that was a challenge, something that helped you, or something you had to overcome?
I think like being younger, like it was to an advantage because I would just like get around people quicker because I was like small and quick. But then like once you get to the collegiate level, like it's a little better to be like bigger, but like I think I'm like a little bit strong, so I think I have an advantage on that point. But I wish I was a little bit taller, like maybe 5'5".
I hear you there. I wish I was a little bit taller too. So when two questions, I know we're bouncing around a bunch, but I have two questions that are related to each other. One, what was it like, those 3 games, watching your team play from the sidelines? They played really well, 3 wins, 8 goals, none conceded. What was it like to watch them? And then what was it like when you get back, you score that big goal on the road to win against Wisconsin? Just take me through those two perspectives that you had.
I think like watching from the sidelines, like I never had to like sit and watch and like know that I had no way of playing. Like it's not because of an injury, it's because like I physically like can't go in the game. But yeah, it was definitely tough, but I was just telling myself like I have to be the loudest cheerleader, like I have to be the biggest supporter, and I want everyone to score. Like I was just so happy when we were winning and scoring. And then coming back, I just like couldn't wait to be back. Like I was just so excited to step back on the field, and I didn't care if it was 30 seconds. I was just going to go on the field and run my butt off until I was taken out.
So when this podcast comes out, you guys will be taking the field against Oregon at your Sac Field. Washington on the schedule after that. How cool is it to play these new teams from across the country, former Pac-12 schools? What's that like?
Yeah, I think like we're really excited. We were talking about today, like when me and Riley were like freshmen, we were saying how like we would see these teams on TikTok and be like, oh, we're like never gonna play them, and now like we get to play them tomorrow, and we're like really excited.
It's great. You mentioned Riley. You feel like you guys have been at Piscataway. Does it feel like sometimes you've been there forever? I mean, and what is it like now, being a leaders of this team, and, looking at this season for you personally? Are there things you guys want to accomplish?
I mean, yeah, we want to go all the way this year. We want to win the Final Four. We want to win the tournaments. And like people like Riley and Kylie and Mason, like I played with them my whole life since I was like Riley, I would say like 10. So like finishing my athletic career with her is going to be like so sad and so crazy. But I think we've came a long way since our freshman year, and like people do look up to us on the field and off the field. And yeah, I'm like really excited just to see how the whole season plays out.
Did you follow the program when they went to the Final Four, I think 10 years ago, something like that? Were you following the program at that point? How long have you been following the Rutgers women's soccer team?
Well, because I played on PDA, like we would, as PDA girls, we would be like ball girls or like just be at the game. So I feel like Rutgers was like the first Division I. I didn't even know what Division I was until Rutgers soccer because of Riley and Madison. So yeah, I would say I've been following them for a really long time. Can
you just describe to our audience who might not know what PDA is, the Player Development Academy, why that's important at Rutgers? And it's really fascinating, this Rutgers women's soccer team, the amount of girls from New Jersey on it. It's such a hotbed for soccer. Can you just explain the relevance of all that?
Yeah, PDA is just like a travel team, and it's related closely to Rutgers because Mike is also a coach at PDA, and it's just like we like preach family, and like PDA was a huge family to me. And then when I came to Rutgers, it like translated right over. But a bunch of the coaches on our staffs now are also coaches for PDA, and it's just good. It's
a great pipeline, right?
Yeah, it's a great pipeline.
This was obviously a great year for U.S. women's soccer, winning the gold medal. Curious if you followed that. Is there a player on that team or a player in U.S. women's soccer history that you kind of built your game around or you idolized?
I really like Trinity Rodman because she's outside forward and she's just so fast and strong, and I just really like how she plays. And she had a great run in the World Cup.
Absolutely. Scored a huge goal in the quarterfinals, right? Yeah.
I pick up off that. I have a few rapid fire questions. What's your favorite moment so far at Rutgers? And if it's a goal, what's your favorite goal? If it's not a goal, what's your favorite goal you scored at Rutgers?
I would have to say this last one against Wisconsin. That was probably definitely my favorite goal because it like meant a little something to me. And my favorite moment, I don't know. Like I love every moment. I love the school. I love the people. Like I don't have a favorite moment.
Sure. All right, what's the best spot to eat in New Brunswick or at Rutgers in the area? What's your go-to?
Right now, for me, I would say Freshies.
Freshies?
Yeah. It's not on College Ave. It's by like the train station. It's really good.
Awesome.
That sounds awfully healthy for Rutgers.
Yeah, it is pretty. Yeah.
I guess so. It makes sense. It's fair. It's in season, right?
Yeah.
So was there one text or did you get any NIL deals or offers out of what happened with the exposure?
I kind of just tried to stay away from like all of that stuff just because I just didn't think it would be in my best interest, but yeah, not really.
Any funny unexpected comments from someone that made you laugh? What was the funniest thing you heard?
Like, I just thought it was funny that like people from like my high school, like principals and coaches, like people I haven't talked to in years were like reaching out to me, like kids I went to in elementary school, their parents were texting me. Like, I just thought that was funny because like I haven't spoken to these people in years, and now here they are texting me.
So it brought your world back together.
Like, yeah.
It's incredible. We also did hear a lot about your Nottingham, your career at Nottingham. You scored over 100 career goals, which is a great milestone. So
thank you.
Really, really well accomplished. And obviously you've parlayed that over to Rutgers. So great job.
Thank you.
I'm sure they all got the ESPN notification the same way you did. I cannot imagine you ever thought you'd be on ESPN, let alone for this. Like when you see that notification, what's running through your mind?
I was just like, oh my God, like everyone that has the ESPN app is getting this notification. Like I was like a little bit in shock.
Sure.
Have you had any contact with the UMass player since then?
No. I honestly, she could like join this podcast and I would have no idea that.
Well, good news, Gia. We have with us now. I have no idea what her name is.
We're not that good at the Rutgers Rant.
Yeah, it would be pretty funny if we could.
You'll find that out soon enough.
Exactly.
We're not that forward thinking. Do you have a favorite sport outside of soccer, like a team you root for or anything you like to watch?
I like the Eagles. I like football.
Okay. Are the Eagles going to win the Super Bowl this year? Or what do you think?
I hope so, yeah.
Okay. Take it to the bank. This is not financial advice, but we're taking it to the bank. Do you have a favorite soccer team? I imagine the U.S. women's national team, but any other soccer team you like to follow?
Not really. I watch any like girls soccer, women's soccer. I don't really have a favorite team.
Quickly becoming the Rutgers Rant soccer podcast. You don't know this about us, Gia, but Brian's a huge soccer fan, Portugal supporter. I've become a huge Arsenal fan. So yeah, we're loving it. We're loving it.
That's cool. Yeah.
All right.
We just have to convert Polity. That's all.
Yeah. I was at the Olympics. I saw women's soccer. Yes, I saw Trinity Rodman score the goal. It was there. All right, before we let you go, can you give us a pick for this week's? Since we pick at the end, can you give us a pick for this week for Virginia Tech Rutgers game football? Who do you like? Be pretty funny.
Rutgers is gonna win.
Are they gonna win by?
A score. Okay. I don't know. 21-14.
There you go.
That's my
That's
pick.
good.
Safe pick. All right. Anything else, fellas? Can we let you go? This was awesome, though. We really appreciate you doing this. Yes, for being a good sport about it. We saw it happen when we saw the clip. We were like, "It wouldn't be great to talk to Gia about this and about everything else." I'm so glad you willing to come on and talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, that was awesome. Again, thanks again, Gia. Thanks again to the women's soccer program for letting us talk to Gia. There you go. We should have more guests, fellas. Why have we done this sooner? Technology, maybe? Because we didn't think they'd say yes. Microphones, yeah. We just didn't think they'd say yes.
Well, that and a Rutgers athlete has never punched an opponent in recent history for us to be sparked to do the interview. So maybe if there's more violence on the Rutgers athletics teams, maybe we'll have more interviews on the Rutgers Rant.
Right, yeah. Why don't you work on getting like Ace Bailey on the podcast? Can you do that for us next? Maybe a little Kyle Manung guy just said he should just put him on the Heisman Trophy. We can get him on the podcast. We'll tell him it's important for Heisman voters to see him.
These guys have wide open schedules. I don't see why they couldn't fit in 10 minutes with the Rutgers Rant. So
exactly. All right. Let's move on. That was great. We still have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk some Virginia Tech. Why don't you guys bring us up to speed on what's going on this week with the Hokies and the game? Obviously, everyone wants to know how the health of the team looks. Bring us up to speed. You were down there in practice all week. You talked to Greg Schiano. What's he saying?
He's playing it close to the vest, as you would expect. As we've said on the podcast, I am syphilis. I am a historic Greek figure pushing a boulder up the mountain.
Okay.
Sisyphus.
Sisyphus. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, these mics are so good. It's unbelievable. So, long story short, a bunch of question marks with the injury situation, but Rutgers is, from Greg Schiano's perspective, healthier than they were at the beginning of the season, coming off the bye. And I think that should be good news for Rutgers fans ahead of this Virginia Tech game.
Right.
I think Rutgers will be the healthiest it's been all season, which, again, when you have 25 different guys on 2 availability reports, is a low bar to clear. But they're going to need it because both of these coaches spent their press conferences talking about how good the other team is. Greg Schiano says that Virginia Tech has 10 NFL draft picks. Brent Pry comes back the next day and says Rutgers has 10 NFL draft picks. We might be seeing the Giants versus the Commanders all over again on Saturday, fellas. It's unbelievable the amount of talent on both these teams. Really excited to see it. On a serious note, I think both these teams really respect each other. I think Virginia Tech's going to put an emphasis on being as physical as Rutgers because they were very clearly out physical last year in Piscataway. And Rutgers is going to hope to do the same thing to Virginia Tech, where they just run the ball down their throats, wear them out, and hope Kyle Manungai does what he does in the fourth quarter and kind of earns them a historic road victory at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, is this a game that Ethan Kelly Mack is going to have to win for the Scarlet Knights? Do you think it's that kind of game where we're going to have to see if this guy can make a big throw in the fourth quarter, or is the running game going to be good enough?
I think the Rutgers running game is going to be very good in this game, but I think you're absolutely right. I think Greg Schiano even pointed this out, that Virginia Tech has a very good secondary with 2 great cornerbacks that makes things interesting from a schematics standpoint, what they're able to do, how they can stack the box, play man coverage, zone. And I think that that's going to be a big deal from a game planning perspective. And that would, in my perspective, at least lend itself to Gia Gman having to do something not extraordinary, but better than expected. So I can see that. And Virginia Tech has an awesome pass rusher, APR, coming off a 4-sack game, two forced fumbles. So we asked Ethan about facing the tough cornerbacks. And, you just said that it's a well-coached team. He's preparing for a tough secondary. And they execute the details very well. So I think this is a pretty good Virginia Tech defense. It's, I think, going to be better than last year. It's just going to come down to, can Rutgers be more physical than them like they were last year?
Couple of 3 things. One, I corrected Pat on Sisyphus, so I got to correct you, Steve. Gia Gman.
What did I say? Gia Gman? I said that.
No, you did not. I will listen back to this later. You did not say.
Fortunately, there's no way anyone could possibly listen back to this. Gia Gman. That's what I said. What did I
don't
say?
think anyone wants to listen back to this anyway. I just wanted to say my piece.
All right.
Second of all, I think it's funny that a star player on the other team is called APR when Rutgers had such high APRs under Greg Schiano. That was a huge emphasis of his academically. I just thought it was a funny acronym for Rutgers to be going against. And 3, I'll take the opposite view of Pat. I think Rutgers is going to be able to run all over Virginia Tech. They gave up a ton of rushing yards to Old Dominion, and I think Kyle Monungai is better than whoever Old Dominion has. No disrespect to Old Dominion. He did it last year. Rutgers was able to beat Virginia Tech with Gavin Wimsatt as their quarterback pretty handily. I think Ethan Gia Gman, if he is as good as he is against Howard and Akron in Virginia Tech, he doesn't have to be much better as long as Kyle Monungai is who Kyle Monungai is. I would expect another big game from him in Blacksburg. On the other side of the ball, I do want to say one of the very few interesting quotes from both head coaches in the last couple of days, and I pointed this out to Pat. Brent Pry said he's not sure Rutgers' defense has been tested quite yet. That both of those games have essentially been finished in the third quarter. He's 100% right. To Pat's point, he's 100% right.
Yes.
But how often do these coaches say that? When, for example, you have Greg Schiano, the way he was describing Howard and Akron, you thought Rutgers was playing Ohio State and Michigan back-to-back. Usually these coaches kind of fluff up their opponents. I thought it was pretty honest insight from Brent and Pry. So I am interested to see how Rutgers will deal with the best quarterback they've played so far, maybe the best wide receiving group they'll play this season outside of USC. It'll be a big challenge for the Rutgers defense.
I mean, not for nothing, Brent Pry, but you didn't play Ohio State either. I mean, played Old Dominion, played instead of OSU, you played ODU and still gave it 250 rushing yards. So I think your defense has been tested and it didn't test well. So that's one key to that. This is interesting though. And I agree with that point. I also think though, as a big test for the offensive line, I'm curious. They have not. I mean, Ethan Gia Gman, they get it right that time, has not had a paw landed on him really this year. This is the first time we're going to see how good this offensive line is. I think
you guys keep forgetting the interception. He got hit as he threw a pick against last game against Akron. He has actually faced some pressure. And one other point I just want to go back to on Brian about Monungai being able to run all over him. And this is the point I'm bringing up about why the schematics matter in this game. Monungai has faced so many loaded boxes. This might be a game that he's facing 8-9 guys if they play man at such a high level on the outside. That could be a real issue, a challenge. Let's say challenge.
Challenge, of course, yeah. And again, it's up to the quarterback to beat that. So, sort of a fascinating thing. We're going to learn about this new transfer if he really is the upgrade we think he is. All right, we got to do insider questions. We got a lot of good ones, but first, I thought we'd play our little game. This has been such a fun podcast already. New game. If you listened last week, or whenever the hell it was when they played Akron, we're doing Know Your Opponent, it's called, instead of this year, as opposed to our game last year where we just made Brian look dumb by pointing out figures in the world of that he did not know. This is a little chance for both Brian and Pat to look foolish, although I think you're going to get all 3 of these right this week. So I went in, dug up some questions about Virginia Tech history. All right, let me pull up my questions. Hang on. Where the hell is it? Okay. All right. Are you guys ready? Know your opponent. Virginia Tech. There's my dog. First question. The Virginia Tech athletic teams are called the Hokies, which is a nod to an 1890 spirit cheer called Old Hokie. but those teams were once called the Gobblers. Why? A, the name was given as a tribute to the way athletes gobbled up their food at the campus dining hall during the pre-war era. B, a local resident named Floyd Meade trained a large turkey to pull a cart at a football game in 1913. C, turkeys were hunted in the fields around the Virginia Tech Stadium after November games as part of a Thanksgiving tradition. Or D, no one knows for sure.
Wow.
What do you got? What do you think?
That's only an award-winning
sound
columnist can make such a difficult.
They all sound possible, right?
Yeah.
There's some truth to that.
Wow.
I'm impressed because obviously one of them is right and the other three are made up by you. I am impressed with your creativity in coming up with these ideas. I will say A, because I think it's the funniest one.
You say the way the athletes gobbled up their food at the campus dining hall. Okay. All right. Pat?
I'm going to go with D. No one really knows for sure because this is like an SAT type situation. The other three answers are all too good to be true.
And you're right, Pat. It is D.
Oh.
And the best part about this, all of those except A and B were theories as to why it was named. And C, I just made up the turkey hunt because I could just imagine like them bringing their rifles to a game. Good job, Pat.
That's good.
Want to know? You're winning. Next question. Enter Sandman was first used as the entrance song for Virginia Tech on August 27th, 2000. Which of the following things actually happened that night? A, Virginia Tech quarterback Michael Vick asked a trainer for earplugs and later complained of a migraine because the song was played at such a high volume. B, the game was delayed by a thunderstorm in the Blacksburg area during which ESPN analyst Lee Corso's rental car was struck by lightning. C, the band Metallica demanded royalties for use of the song, almost forcing the university to pivot to Jump Jump by the rap duo Criss Cross. Or D, a seismograph in the nearby Roanoke area detected an earthquake that would have measured 4.7 on the Richter scale from all the jumping. What do you got?
So I want to say D because that sounds the most realistic to me, but I am a big believer in corporate greed and people trying to make a buck wherever they can. So I'll go with C. I think Metallica is a band of the people, but sometimes you just want to get paid for your work. And I think Metallica is the kind of band that says, pay up, pal.
You are exactly right, Brian, because here's something else that might have happened in the year 2000. Lars Ulrich, the drummer for Metallica, sued Napster. Isn't that a thing?
Mm-hmm.
The illegal music downloading. He was one of the guys that led the charge against Napster.
Huh. So you're going with C as well?
I'm going with C as well.
No, the answer is B. Lee Corso's car was struck by lightning.
No way, that's true.
Yeah, that's actually
that was
true.
the least likely one.
Well, I'm just telling you, it's the least likely, but it's true. Look it up. Google it. Yeah, I made up the other three. I made them all up. Yep. There you go.
You think he was wearing the Hokies helmet while he was driving in?
I don't know. I just like the idea that Lee Corso doesn't have a driver. Come on, that's crazy. All right, final question.
It's kind of crazy.
I'm disappointed you both got Brian, your own one. Your own two again. I think you get them over last week.
How is that deep Metallica knowledge not
couldn't useful? Still not correct. Why would Metallica care if the song was played? And Criss Cross? Come on. Criss Cross will make you jump. You don't even know that song probably. Jump, jump. Can you imagine?
I do.
It would change the vibe. It would change the vibe in Lane Stadium if they did that. All right. Third question. Finally, Michael Vick is not Hokies all-time passing yards leader. He isn't even in the top 10. Who is number one? A, Don Strock, the longtime Dolphins quarterback. B, Tyrod Taylor, the current Jets backup. C, Logan Thomas, a former NFL tight end. Or B, Big John Ferguson, who later became Virginia's 63rd governor.
So B and C are definitely Virginia Tech quarterbacks. I know that for a fact. You're trying to trick us with the Logan Thomas switch to tight end. I am aware of that. A and D, these are the if you try to play if you try to analyze this mad scientist here, it's just too hard. I'm going with Logan Thomas. I think he was pretty prolific.
All right.
I want to say D, because being the all-time pass leader of your state university seems like something that would get you the governorship.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh wait,
I'm with Pat. I know Tyrod Taylor is, in fact, a Virginia Tech quarterback because he beat Notre Dame in 2009 based on the notes I was reading earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So only because he's the only name I know for a fact is a Virginia Tech quarterback, I'll go with B, Tyrod Taylor.
Okay. Look like Pat was going to change his answer,
it's
it's a shame
now
because he's right. It is Logan
runner,
Thomas.
just like Vic. He was more of a runner, just like Vic.
It was Logan Thomas. You were correct. I made up Big John Ferguson, I don't think there's been 63 governors yet of Virginia. Could be. But
Fair
Pat,
point.
you were the winner. 2-0 this week. 2-1.
That's
Brian,
huge.
0-3.
0-3.
Well, you were 0-3 last week.
The
And
Akron
Akron
season.
So you're almost pulling back to 500, Brian. You're a disgrace this week. Congratulations. I'm sure we'll get some nasty texts about it. But there you go, Logan Thomas. I did not know that. I saw that in the thing. I didn't realize he was a quarterback at Virginia Tech. So much less the all-time leading passer yards. Wow.
So the all-time leading passer in Virginia Tech history became a tight end in the NFL.
That's true.
Super athletic guy.
Tim Tebow? He's the Tim Tebow
former
Virginia
Rutgers quarterbacks. Many have transferred to tight end.
Yes. None of them, however, became prolific NFL players.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
That's the difference. All right. Thanks, guys, for playing along. That was fun. Lots of questions. Lots and lots of questions. Okay. Let's go back to the other script. A lot of people wanted to talk about the big news this week we haven't gotten to yet. Rutgers president Jonathan Holloway stepping down. Here's a question. Now that Holloway's departure is official, which hire, AD or president, do you think is more important to get right from an athletics department? While Holloway has fault, I imagine that former D1 players who are qualified to be university president aren't growing on trees. It's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I tend to think athletic director because it's hands-on. It's someone who's on the ground. But at the same time, we've seen university presidents who have set the wrong tone and it ruins everything. What do you guys think?
I'll go athletic director because he has his hands in the cookie jar and he's kind of has a big obvious influence in the department. I understand what you're saying from a presidential level, and especially now is a crucial time to have a president that's aligned because they will be having a big say in how much the school is investing in athletics and how the conversations with the league office and all that stuff. But I still think the athletic director, the one that makes the day-to-day decisions, is ultimately and should, in theory, be pretty important in the fundraising aspect of this. Should be the one that's the most important in the athletic department. I'll go with that.
Yeah.
I think whoever asked the question kind of answered it himself. So I'm going to go slightly different. When he said, I imagine former D1 football players who are qualified to be a university president aren't growing on trees. I think that hits the nail on the head. Actually, like it's so rare to get a guy that's so qualified and so pro athletics.
I agree with that. I just don't know that I don't think this board, the current climate is going to let someone who's not pro athletics be hired for that job. It would just be insane at this point to have someone who, and he wasn't anti-athletics, but Bob Barchi wasn't, he wasn't a guy who embraced it, didn't understand why it was so important. I don't think they'll ever do that again. It just seems like impossible. And that line, I think that's one way you will get someone who is favorable to athletics unless something crazy happens. So along those lines, I'm going to go with the athletic director because it's just the boots on the ground leader who really is important to get everyone aligned. So that's my take on that. All right. Would it be fair to say President Holloway was the most athletics friendly Rutgers president in recent history? Yeah. That's a good question from Joe. I think probably, yeah. I mean, he had a really good legacy. And this is the most important thing he did was he stood up to the faculty council and said, look, athletics is not going to make money. And it's not going to break even. And I don't care. And it was just someone had finally said that after years of like Barchi saying, well, we're going to get the deficit down. We're going to get it back to its break even point and worrying about, a rounding error in the calculations. And I get people, when people get to hear that who are pro academics who don't understand it, but the value of the athletics beyond this, he understood it. He understood it was worth whatever money they were spending to get to that point. And, that was the first time that really happened. And I think that's why Greg Shannon spoke about him, Brian, so glowingly today when you asked him about him.
Yeah, and to your point about athletics in the budget, I was watching the Board of Trustees meeting they had last night, and they had a presentation about the budget for this academic year. Athletics composes 3% of the university's budget, and the person presenting it claimed that 2/3 of that money is going to be made back by revenue in the department, right? So, I mean, ideally, the department is making money, but at the very least, it's not losing all 3%. Some of it is being made back. So just to kind of accentuate your point. And yes, Greg Schiano had a lot of great things to say about Jonathan Holloway, said he was sad to see him go, and that they worked well together. He was very collaborative. He was very helpful with the athletic department. I just kind of, again, iterate the point that he was the most athletics-friendly president in maybe Rutgers history, as far as I can tell. But he said that he has blind trust in Amy Towers and the Board of Governors to find his replacement. And I think that's the key here. Greg Schiano talks a lot about being vertically aligned, and we know obviously that the president is leaving, the athletic director is gone, and they have an interim. But I think he kind of made a strong point of Amy Towers there. She, more than maybe any other leader of the Board of Governors other than maybe Greg Brown, is going to help the athletics department, is going to help the football program. And when you have that person in your corner, I think that's as valuable as anybody at the university.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great
And you answered the next question. Someone asked, how does Amy Towers fit into all this? And that's exactly it. I mean, I think that she is the most important person in this calculation in a lot of ways. She's going to be the one who leads the search. She's going who's going to advocate for Schiano and Steve Peichel in this process. In both searches, I think she's going to be deeply involved for the AD and the president. So, yeah, I mean, I know, and that's an incredible story in itself. Someone who, their story, Amy and Jeff Towers coming to Rutgers from a Big Ten, Wisconsin, Nebraska background and getting to the point where they are leaders of the university in this way is kind of amazing. But, yeah, I think Greg Schiano is right. And having someone in that position who understands the importance of athletics or someone who advocates what makes an enormous difference. And that's why he's not going to lose sleep over this. I think that's my takeaway as well.
I just want to add really quickly. At the Board of Trustees meeting last night, Jonathan Holloway said that it's his intention to work closely with Amy Towers. He said this in regards to the Newark chancellor search. Work closely with her. That they will hopefully, ideally, be completed in January. Let me just read the quote, actually, so I'm not paraphrasing.
Go ahead. Yeah.
It is my intention, working closely with Amy Towers, that the Newark chancellor search will be completed ideally in January, and that I will have a role in the naming of that person, and also working with the Board of Governors and representation from the Board of Trustees. The same thing with the Director of Athletics. I bring that up to say it sounds like Jonathan Holloway, despite being the departing president, does want some say in who the next Director of Athletics is. I'm not sure, one, if he will be able to, right? It's one thing to have that intention. It's another thing to actually do it. And two, if he does, that would signal to me that they're going to have an athletic director before a new president, which I know has been a question that people have been asking a ton.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense you can't wait that long into July until you start that search and make that search. I do say it's going to be interesting. I don't know, how much is that going to impact whoever interviews for the job. If you're an AD who's got a good situation, you're going to want to know who your boss is to some level. So they're going to have to really work on assuring people what that's going to be, I think, or pay them a lot of money, which is another distinct possibility in this equation. But I wrote this morning, I think Ryan Pizarro is going to be the AD for a while. I still believe that to be true. I mean, this is not going to get resolved. If it gets resolved in January, they're still going halfway through basketball season at least before the new AD really gets on his feet. And even then, that's an interesting one. Someone asked, hang on, since we were talking about Ryan Pizarro, I don't have it in front of me, but someone asks, why is Ryan Pizarro not a candidate for the job? He seems qualified, young New Jersey guy, up and coming. It's a great point. I think I wrote about it today. I think he's going to end up being a candidate. I don't know if he's going to get the job, but I think the fact that he knows Steve Peichel, he knows Greg Schiano, who's their sports administrator, and he has a relationship with Amy Towers. Those are the three people we said were important in this process. He also has a 4-month audition now. I still feel very strongly that you should have someone in that job who has sat in that chair. And in some ways, it would almost be great to have him, Ryan Pizarro, as the number 2 behind someone with an experience aide. So he can give the New Jersey perspective to someone who's been an experienced AD. That would be the perfect thing. But still, if you can't find that person, you're not going to take a flyer on a mediocre candidate when you've got a good candidate here. So I think in that situation, Ryan might be a shot.
I think what you highlighted so well in your story today, Steve, was how badly Ryan Pizarro wanted this job, or to get a position at all at Rutgers Athletics, giving up a 6-figure salary, working in the financial world, just knocking constantly on his connection with Tim Pernetti, both being, Wyckoff guys and up in Bergen County. So it was a really great story you told there. And I thought that really highlighted just who he is as a person.
Yeah, it's a great, and he's got to get, that's a really part of the job is, right, just having a good story to tell people. And so when he goes out and talks to boosters about his journey, that's a pretty compelling tale to tell people. And
some persistence too. You gotta have some persistence when you're going to these donors over and over and over again. The ability to take a lot of rejections and keep coming back, I think, is a good quality to have in an AD as well.
Yep, no question. All right, trying to look for any other questions we've got. We've got a bunch of football questions, with Virginia Tech sitting at 113 in rush defense and Rutgers sitting at 4 in rush offense. Should containing their quarterback with an LB spy, linebacker spy, be enough to steal the W in Blackbirds? I see another potential 150-yard day for Kyle. I think it's interesting because the linebacker thing now is one of the more, we don't assume Tyrone Powell is going to be back. If he's back, changes a lot of things there. What if he does come back? How do you arrange that linebacker situation now?
That's a great question. Rutgers plays with 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, generally 5 defensive backs. Desmond Igbinosin is kind of and Shaquan Loyal can play in the box. They can cover. They use their safeties in a versatile way. In this game, do they play 3 linebackers? Is Powell back? Like you said, it's just really an interesting. We obviously can't know until we see it or anything like that. So I think that's a really good point. And the QB spy is something so interesting. Kyron Drones, the Virginia Tech quarterback, is a good runner. He's not Michael Vick. He's physical. Yeah. That's the difference, right? Like Greg Shannon was even saying the Howard quarterback was so super fast compared to Drones. Drones is more just like a physical bruiser, but can do things more like a Gavin Wimsatt type runner than what you saw against Howard. So I don't know that a spy is exactly the answer, but it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, we heard the word contain over and over again this week. So it's obviously there's things in the works.
I would guess you put your 2 best linebackers out there. I think Tyrone Powell obviously starts if he's good to go for this game. And I think the best linebacker in his absence has been Daryl Jabomi. So I think you put those 2 on the field together and you let the other young guys behind them, Abram Wright, Moses Walker, Timmy Heinz-Speeder, you let those guys kind of rotate in as you see fit. But I think Tyrone Powell instantly upgrades the defense once he comes back in. He's their best linebacker, I think, by far. And I think if you're going to put a spy, you might want to put a spy just because, one, he's fresh, right? He hasn't played games this season, and he's probably the most athletic guy they have, and he'll be able to kind of do that job the best. I don't know if they will, but I certainly think it's a possibility, and I think if they're going to do it, it would be Tyrone Powell.
All right, great question. One last one before we make our picks. It's not really a question. It's a Frank Pepsarone wants to invite you guys to dinner in Virginia Tech. Hi, guys. I'm traveling to Virginia Tech on Friday. Would you let me buy you dinner for any of you? Any recommendation for Friday night activities? Unfortunately, I don't think any of you guys are going to be in Blacksburg on Friday night.
Right.
So,
Pepsarone, friend of the podcast, obviously friend of the pod.
Be honored to have dinner.
We'll be having a big tailgate for the Washington game in the Scarlet Lot with a lot of former players from the late 70s. And we were also welcome to stop by for a burger there.
Yeah. Bring through your travel. I'm not going to this game, but Pat, you're flying into Greensboro and driving up from there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's a direct flight to Greensboro?
I'm actually flying to Raleigh.
You're flying to Raleigh?
Very cheap flight. And an old friend lives in Greensboro. So then I'm staying with him in Greensboro.
So Raleigh's an hour and a half.
Yeah, Greensboro from, you're a North Carolina guy. You know this better than me, but Greensboro to Blacksburg is 2.5 hours. And I just thought everything, it just worked out better than what Brian's going to do, which you can have.
This is a good bet. So if the option here, flying and get to the airport, fly an hour and a half to Raleigh, drive an hour and a half to Greensboro, and then wake up and drive 2.5 hours to Blacksburg versus what you're doing, Brian, which is
driving 5 hours on Friday to Harrisonburg, which is on I-81 on direct route to Blacksburg. And I didn't realize this when I booked it, on the campus of James Madison University. So I'm at a rival school, staying in their town, maybe check out their scene Friday night. And then I'm waking up Saturday morning. Thank God it's a 3:30 game, and driving 2 hours myself to Blacksburg to cover the game, and then driving 2 hours back to Harrisonburg for Saturday night. So short, I'm not going to be able to make it to dinner unless you drive up 2 hours to Harrisonburg and come join me at whatever dive bar I spend my time Friday night on. But this is not. I think Virginia Tech is clearly one of the more difficult places to travel to in the country, even more so than State College. Just kind of it's what happens when you're in the middle of nowhere in Southern Virginia.
Yeah, it does feel like a grittier, further away State College experience here. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be thinking of you. Can't make this trip for I don't have an excuse. I'm just not going. But I'll go. But I'll be there.
Hey, you got Gia Girman on the Rutgers Rant, Steve. You won the week.
I didn't get Gia Girman on the Rutgers Rant either. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, all right. Picks? Want to make picks? All right, let's do it. 3. That's a 3.5. Is that the line now?
We are going with 3.5. Yes.
Okay. All right. You're leading, right? So you go first, Brian.
Sure.
Right? 2-0. I'm
2-0. Yes. Thank you for reminding me. And I am now 15-0 in my last 15 games, picking Rutgers straight up. So I could have bought a house if I just invested some money in picking Rutgers. But anyway, enough of my bragging. Rutgers has never won at Virginia Tech. Rutgers came relatively close the last time they were there in 2002 under Greg Schiano. They came relatively close in 1993, the year after the Halloween Miracle at Rutgers, but they've never won at Blacksburg. This is not Virginia Tech of old. This is not the Virginia Tech of Frank Beamer. This is a good Virginia Tech, not a great Virginia Tech. Rutgers beat them last year behind Kyle Monungai. That was kind of his big breakout game. I think they'll beat them again behind Kyle Monungai. I think they'll beat them convincingly. I think the spread is much different than a lot of the analytics I've seen out there. And I think Rutgers wins this game fairly comfortably. I'll go Rutgers 27, Virginia Tech 14.
Wow. Okay. Hold them down to 14 points too. All right. I'm with you on all of that, just about all of that. And the fact they beat them last year, I looked back on it. Gavin Wimsatt had like 40 yards passing.
Yeah.
And physically dominated them. I'm stunned by the line. I get it. That a lot of that is just hype and preseason stuff still baked into it. It's also the fact it's a tough place to play and history. And I think people see Rutgers on the road and go, well, I get it, but I don't understand it. And I think Rutgers is the better team. Got the better player coming against a bad rushing defense. All of these I agree totally. I'm going to go a little closer though than 13 points. I think 28-20 is about the number I'm going to settle on there for that one. But still covering it easily.
You guys have both been right on the money, I think, with your analysis, both spot on. I will say the more and more I research the new players, the transfers at Virginia Tech, they do have a talented roster, as Greg Schiano has mentioned many times. I don't think that's hyperbole. I do think they have some legitimately very talented players that stand out when you watch them. And the thing that I keep coming back to is that the Rutgers defense was supposed to be its calling card this season. And while, yes, they haven't truly been tested yet against Howard and Akron, this is going to be a legitimate first test. And I need to see a pass rush. I need to see some havoc. I want to see Rutgers be the team that we thought they were going to be in the preseason, that plays dominant defense and runs the ball. If they do that, they win this game. Along the same lines as you, Steve, like 28-20.
Picking the same score as me? Wow. Okay.
I'll change it. All right.
Change it. Come on. I don't
give
care.
someone a field goal.
30-24.
There you go. All right. We're all picking them to cover. So there you go. Take that one to Vegas, and either we'll be 3-0, or we'll be 1-0, or it'll be a disaster. So, all right. What else? Anything else? We've gone along the show. Men's soccer, you got in here, field hockey. Give me an update.
Quick rundown on the Olympic sports. And let me pull it up so I usually just kind of go off the top of my head. I actually wrote notes this week, so I'll be able to actually.
I could read your notes if you want. Men's soccer drew 1-1 with Yale. Okay.
Rutgers drew with Yale. They're 3-4-1. They're 0-1 in the Big Ten, and they get a nice easy break this weekend. They play number 7 Ohio State in Columbus, which is a nice difficult game. A little bit of a rough go for the fellas and McElderry as they continue on this season. Field hockey destroyed Miami of Ohio. giving them a little bit of notice before the football team plays Miami of Ohio next year. The field hockey lady said Rutgers is not to be messed with. You might as well just drop the contract and not even bother coming to Piscataway. They moved to 3-2, but now they open Big Ten play against number 7 Maryland, which is not even the hardest Big Ten team they're playing the rest of this month. They play number 1 Northwestern at Northwestern, and they play number 4 Iowa at Rutgers. This is in a couple weeks. Big Ten field hockey in the Big Ten is no cakewalk, folks. Volleyball's 4-5. They go to Norfolk, Virginia. They're going to play Old Dominion, and it was listed as UMass. I figured out it was University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which I'm not even sure if he won. But if they beat both those teams, UMass, not UMass, UMass. If they beat both those teams, they improve to 6-4 before the start of Big Ten play, which is obviously going to be a gauntlet. It always is in that sport. I did write the cross country thing. Who threw in cross country?
Okay. You always forget about cross country. So I thought this might be the absolute best podcast to bring this up because it was trending that our first guest of the podcast was going to be Alex Carlson, the great distance runner.
Yeah.
She is now at Northern Arizona, as we mentioned that she transferred out. Northern Arizona is the number 1 ranked women's cross country team in the nation. And Alex Carlson will be a big part of that. And since this is the Rutgers Rant, it should be noted that sophomore Lorena David broke 21 minutes in the 6K. A very good time for a sophomore and had a really nice performance at the big preview meet, which is where the conference championship will be held later this year at Illinois.
Wow. That's as deep as we've gone into cross country.
That's it.
It is a shame.
This is a constantly evolving podcast.
It's a shame that we finally have guests on now and not during the era of Alex Carlson, who was our first favorite on the Rutgers Rant and should have been on. But yeah, I don't think the audience is as plugged into Alex Carlson than when she was a star for the Scarlet Knights. But listen, it's better late than never.
I think we had the perfect first guest. And I want to thank Gia Girman again for coming on our show, for Matt Jaquette for getting her for us, Mike O'Neill for allowing this. He must have approved it. Mike O'Neill, a friend of the pod now officially. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to try to get more guests in the future. That was great. Better than listening to us talk, God knows. All right. We'll be back after the Virginia Tech game to recap the action. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at nj.com/insider.